Luis J. Rodriguez is an award-winning poet, activist, and Los Angeles Poet Laureate, and author of one of our own school district's most popular board-approved reading, Always Running, La Vida Loca, Gang Days in LA, for our own high school students. How he's impacted the literary world, you say? Rodriguez has published award-winning works ranging from poetry to fiction, worked as editor of Tia Chucha Press, a small literary publishing house, and founded Tia Chucha's Centro Cultural and bookstore in Solmar, which was awarded the 2020 California Nonprofit of the Year by Senate Majority Leader Robert M. Hertzberg. He's traveled the U.S. and farther, speaking and holding writing workshops in prisons, jails, and juvenile lockups, from being homeless at 15 in the streets of downtown LA, with a library as his refuge, to being a poet laureate of the entire city. The beauty is not unknown to Rodriguez or his story. He was chosen for a 2-year appointment in October of 2014 by Mayor Eric Garcetti. The role required roughly 20 public events and a handful of other duties each year, but Rodriguez attended well over 200 in that time. And he continues to speak and share his works and empowering message. Always Running, winner of the Carl Sandburg Literary Award, hailed as a New York Times notable book and read by hundreds of thousands. Always Running is the searing true story of one man's life in a Chicago gang. This book has since been made into a play and live show and continues to live on in the hearts of fans of the memoir. Rodriguez is also known for helping start a number of organizations, such as Chicago's Guild Complex, one of the largest literary arts organizations in the Midwest, and Youth Struggling for Survival, a Chicago-based nonprofit community group working with gang and non-gang youth. He is a member of the Indigenous Peoples contingent of the National Poor People's Campaign. We are honored to be one of the schools to host him. On behalf of Garey High School and the Pomona Unified School District, welcome Mr. Rodriguez and thank you for the gift of your words to our world.
As some of you all know, if anybody's read the book, I didn't start out that way. I started out as a very troubled young man. I didn't do well in school. I was good with the smarts. I had terrible behavior. And so I got kicked out of schools. I got into a lot of fights. I got into a gang when I was 11 years old. I started doing drugs at 12, and I mean all the way to heroin, whatever drugs at the time was going on. I started getting arrested at 13, mostly for heavy duty things that I pretty much was able to get through. I was in a murder's row when I was 16. I was arrested for attempted murder when I was 17. And then at 18, they were trying to get me for fighting with police officers. But as you can see, I'm not that person. And that's really the story. How do you get somebody who was on heroin for 7 years, in and out of jails, juvenile hall, in the streets, I was homeless for 3 years, to be the person that you see, who has a bookstore and a culture center and has 16 books. The reason I bring this bag, and I try to show people, because Always Running is probably the most important book I have, but it's not even my favorite book. I just want to show you a little bit so you can see. I can't even show you all the books that I have, but you can get an idea. I'll show you just a little bit. I can't even show you all of them. I got a whole mess of books in this bag. 16 books that I've published. And I will tell you, yes, thank you. And I think what's important for me is I used to be told in those days by teachers that I would never amount to anything. And I hope none of you ever hear that. Well, when I was growing up, they would swat you for speaking Spanish. I'm glad they don't do that no more, but still. And teachers told me I never amount to anything. I wish that they could see me now. You know what I'm saying? They can see that you can't tell that to anybody. You don't know what people are going to do with their lives. You don't know what gifts every one of you have. Every one of you are born with it. And you might say, I don't got no gifts. Nobody's ever told me. I didn't either. I didn't think I had anything. But all of you have purpose. All of you have meaning. And you all have a life you were meant to live. A good, decent life. And that's what you have to struggle for. I had a hard time getting there. Besides the 7 years of drinking, on heroin, I drank for 20 years on top of that. It was a waste of a lot of energy and time and life and by my body and liver. I had liver, just before the pandemic, my liver gave out. Not gave out entirely, but enough where I had to be hospitalized. But it was enough that makes me think about what we can do if we didn't get so distracted. You know what I'm saying? So pulled away in other directions that had nothing to do with who you are. Everybody has a special art inside of them. And it could be anything. And maybe it could be 2 or 3 things. But you have to find that. As you all know, my struggle is that always running happened. I got through it. I got out of it early enough. I held my oldest son, Ramiro, when I was 20 years old. And that really changed my life. Holding him, my baby, I promised that I would never get back to La Vida Loca. And I've kept that promise all these years. In many ways, my son Ramiro saved me. You understand what I'm saying? I know people have kids and it doesn't mean much, but it really impacted me to hold him and to have him in my arms and to know I've gotten this far and I can have this beautiful baby in my arms. And you saw them in the video. He's the one that I'm holding with my first wife, my son Ramiro. But I have another book after Always Winning, another memoir called It Calls You Back, because the madness will call you back. And it will take many forms. And one of the forms that it took in my life is that it called my son. And I got out of drinking and drugs. I've been sober now for 28 years, clean and sober completely.
Yes.
That's a very important thing. But another reason why my son saved my life is because he joined a gang in Chicago. He got into all the drugs and all that. 13 and a half years, he did a stretch in prison. I will have to say that you would think this is terrible. It was a blessing every step of the way. From 40 years to life to 13 and a half, you know what I'm saying. But my son, I will have to say, took that to heart because he was a very troubled young man. He was capable of doing anything bad you can imagine, but he took it to heart. And even while in prison, he himself sobered up. He himself left the gang life. He himself decided to better himself. And he got out of prison in 2010, and he's been out ever since. He's a father and a grandfather today. He's 46 years old, and I brought my son with me because I want you to hear him as well. He's the basis for what I do. I have 4 kids, 5 grandkids, and 5 great-grandkids. And a lot of them have to do with Ramiro. So what I want to do is real briefly bring him up, and then I'm going to continue. But I want to bring him up. He's also a Mexica danzante, Aztec dancer,
Yes.
which centers him, and he's also a great poet. So I'm going to bring up my son, Ramiro Rodriguez.
I went through a hard life, I went through some trauma, went through some heartaches, put a lot of my family in jeopardy at times, and there were moments where I didn't even know if I was gonna make it to be 21. And there's things in your life that you don't think they're blessings because they're coming at you really hard, and that was prison. And for me, I was thinking, wow, okay, well, this is it. I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in prison. But luckily, through the community and family and people being there for me, I did not have to do the 40 years to life that I was looking at. And so, but I also knew then, okay, I have to make something with this life that's given to me. I don't want to go back, I don't want to go back in the way I used to, because I still go back to the neighborhood, talk to a lot of the guys, the girls from the neighborhood. I've helped some of them get master's degrees, I've helped some of them change their lives. Of course, unfortunately, there's some that don't. They want to still continue to keep doing the things that they're doing. But I try to be as positive as I can, and I try to be the support that I can for them, And then unfortunately, too, my own kids. I have a daughter right now who's on crystal meth. Man, she's been like 5-6 years. you know, and it's hard to get it into her head to change her own life, you know, but all I can do is continue to keep being a positive person. And that way, hopefully in her own way, she can see that she too can come out of whatever hardship she's going through, you know. So some of the things that helped me get through a lot of that was poetry. Like my dad, you know, poetry helped me, but also learning who I am as an indigenous person. My ancestors come from Mexico, from my dad's side, I'm Raramuri. My mom's side, I'm a Chol and Cora, I'm a Shika, I'm a Danzante. Knowing that connection that I have with Tonantzin, the Mother Earth, you know, the connection that I have with Tonatiuh, the grandfather's son, you know, these are the connections that has helped me grow as a person. And I'm a Danzante. I'm also sing songs. We attend sweat lodges. You know, so those are the things that has helped me find my balance, has kept me focused, has kept me in a good way. And so what I want to do is I want to read a poem about something. It's a poem called I forgot what's it called. Dancing Through a Beating. So it's a poem that's kind of related to me as being a danzante, but just also my experiences, especially with dealing with the police. So there you go. I spin, I squat, move back, move forward, take a deep breath, and do it again. I spin, I squat, move back, move forward, take a deep breath, consumed by energies from the Creator, drenched in sweat, the beat of the wewet, the rattle of the sonaja, my body pushed beyond its limits, my mind focused, and with each movement, every step, I send my prayers to the Creator, my ancestors, asking for guidance, for wisdom, for healing, for me, for my family, for my community. I spin, I squat, move back, move forward, take a deep breath. The police handcuff me, spin me around, make me squat on the floor. They move me back, they move me forward, and I take a deep breath. With every punch that lands on my face, consumed by their hate, I am drenched in my own blood. My heart beats fast, my bones rattle hard, and my body has gone way beyond its limits. Their minds are focused with each punch, every kick. There are no prayers for guidance, for wisdom, for healing. I am only left with pain, shame, humiliation. I spin, I squat, move back, move forward, take a deep breath. Who I was then, who I am now, who I will be, is all marked by the preciseness of my ability to follow the grandfathers into that next realm. And on that journey, the beat of the wewet, my heart, the rattle of the sonaja, my bones, will keep me from falling off the path of the Mexicayot. I dance through the beatings of life. I dance through the beatings of my inner demons. I dance through the beatings of my father's abandonment, the choices I have made in life, the degradation of the police. I dance through the beatings of my own transitions to becoming a strong and respected Mexica warrior, a warrior for peace, a warrior for love, a warrior to open doors for our young people going forward into the next 7 generations, giving them guidance, wisdom, healing, as they make their own transitions on the path of the Mexicayot. So for them, for me, for my kids, for my family, for my community, my ancestors, Tonantzin, Ometeo, I spin, I squat, move back, move forward, take a deep breath, and do it again, and again, and again, and again. Thank you.
I had to learn my own way. I had mentors who didn't save me. They gave me the tools, the connections, the caring, the love, so I could save myself. And that's what we do in our communities. I've been going to prisons for 40 years, juvenile halls, jails, to work with the most troubled men and women. And we give them the same healing path, the same healing idea. We use art, we use poetry, we use all these great ways that people can express themselves so they can heal from the trauma to transformation. That's what we do. And he's an example, I'm an example, but we have many examples. We have guys we work with who did 38 years in prison, who are now out there doing positive, amazing work, writing, all kinds of amazing things. Another guy who did 28 years in prison, we're working on his life story as a film because he's become an amazing poet. So this is the work that we do. We have to believe in you. We have to believe in our young people. We have to believe even in the ones that people want to throw away. Because nobody should be thrown away in our society. And I know it's hard. I'm working with guys in the prisons who have killed people. Nobody will give them the time of day, but I will tell you honestly, they're some of the most decent people now I've ever met. Because we respect and we honor and we bring out that decency. If we treat them badly, what's gonna come out? The bad stuff. We treat them like human beings with respect. We don't have to say, hey, we're gonna condone all the bad things people do, but we understand it enough to know you don't have to be trapped by this. You don't have to be trapped by alcohol, by drugs, by fear, by pain, by trauma. You don't have to be trapped by it, you understand? We can all begin to free ourselves. And the first thing is to free your mind and your spirit. Free that, and the rest of the world will start, the jails and all the prison bars will start going away. But free your mind and your spirit now. Work on that, because I know everybody's in some kind of prison. If I didn't think so, I wouldn't even be talking to anybody. I have to talk to people because we're all in some kind of trap. We're all caught up in something. We don't understand it. We don't know why we're being held. We don't know why we can't be just who we're supposed to be. So we have to struggle hard collectively, but also personally. How to overcome every barrier that holds back your ability to be who you were meant to be. That to me is the most important thing that I want to share. I also want to share a poem because that's what we do. And the poem that I want to share is called The Calling, because one of the first times I ever started writing poetry was in Montgomery-Roa when I was 16 years old. They were trying to get me for the murders of 3 people. Montgomery-Roa used to be the Hall of Justice jail in downtown LA. When I was there in 1970, the whole Montgomery-Roa was black and brown except for one white guy, Charles Manson. I had a cell right next to Charles Manson. You guys may not know who he is, don't worry about it. You can look him up, But I had a cell right next to him. So what they were trying to do is get me for these murders that I didn't do, but it doesn't matter. That's the street life. The first night I was there, 2 big guys put a razor blade to my neck, because that's what they do. And why did they do that? To see if I could be intimidated, to see if I would be scared, because if I would be, I would be done. But I had already lived in the street. I was already homeless. I was already in the street life. I looked at them, I stood up, I wasn't scared. You can't be scared, because they can see right through it. My wife always asked me, you weren't scared a little bit? I always said that I was kind of scared, but I knew I wasn't, because they can see right through it. Unfortunately, when you're in the crazy life like that, you don't give a hoot. And I would say another word, but I don't want to cuss. You don't care. Kill me. You think I'm scared? You understand what I'm saying? I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of hurting somebody else. That's the horrible thing. I stood up to them and they had a razor blade to my neck, and I said, you better make sure I'm good and dead, because if not, I'm gonna come get you. And they looked at me and they started to laugh, and then they took the razor blades out, and then we played cards all night long. That's how it is. It's the world in which people just want to test. I made that, but that's not a good world to be in. You stop being human, you know what I'm saying? You can't feel nothing no more. You get this terrible numbness. When people die and get hurt, you start getting numb. Too many people dying. I lost 25 friends by the time I was 18. After a while, you're numb to it. That's awful. You know, it shouldn't be that way. The world shouldn't be that way. And it's the fight to be human again. It's what we had to do. And what I have to help others do. So I'm gonna read you this poem because when I was sitting there, I started writing my first poems. Crazy as I was, that's where my life came through the writing. And it's again, I'm saying to everybody, you all got a calling. You all have purpose. You all have something, destiny to live out. You have to find out what it is. And when you don't know, you'll fall all kinds of directions. I finally found it. And it's in my life, it's in my books, it's in my writing, it's in my speaking, it's in language. I love language. I was a kid that couldn't speak English and then was beaten down for speaking Spanish. And guess what? Language was still what became my thing, my passion. So the poem I wrote then was bad. I fixed it up years later, just to be honest. But the heart of it is here. And the poem goes like this, called The Calling. The calling came while I languished in my room, while I whittled away my youth in jail cells and damp vadio fields. It brought me to life out of captivity in a street-scarred and tattooed place I called body. Until then, I waited silently, a deafening clamor in my head, voiceless to all around, hidden from America's eyes, a brown boy without a name. I would sing into a solitary tape recorder, music never to be heard. I would write my thoughts in scrambled English. I would take photos of my mind, plan out new parks, bushy green, concrete free, new places to play and think, waiting. Then it came, the calling. It brought me out of my room. It forced me to escape night captors and street prisons. It called me to war, to be writer, to be scientist, and march with the soldiers of change. It called me from the shadows, out of the wreckage of my barrio. From among those who did not exist. I waited all of 16 years for this time. Somehow, unexpected, I was called. I want you to be called. And when you do, I want you to meet that challenge. And again, it's going to be different for everyone. And you may not even know it's happening. Some people get called and they look the other way. Some people get called, don't even know they're being called. But when you do know, your life is calling you. Live it out. Live it out fully. The worst thing in this world is to live and not live the life you were fully supposed to be living. And that's really what I have to tell you. My dad didn't live a full life. He worked hard-working guy. Worked, custodian, years. He did not live out his full life. He died a very sad, dispirited, broken down man. I don't mind saying that. I talk about it in my book, Calls You Back. I have a brother who I love dearly who passed away 2 years ago. He's only 3 years older than me. He had early Alzheimer's. It was so bad, this is one of the worst cases of Alzheimer's I ever saw. He couldn't speak no more because he forgot how to talk. Then he couldn't remember people. Then he couldn't remember how to even eat, how to do anything. Eventually, his heart couldn't remember to keep beating. These are what happens when you don't know who you are. My poor brother worked 35 years in the phone company. He worked all over here, San Gabriel Valley, East LA, everywhere. He was working. He worked hard. Good father, good grandfather. And then his brain goes away. And he never did what he wanted to do. You know what my brother wanted to do? He wanted to play music. You know how you have this dream? He had a bass he used to play in bands. When you get married, you have to get a job, you have kids. I'm not against being married, have kids, have a job, by the way, because I got all those things. But you shouldn't give up your dreams. You know what I'm saying? And I saw him give it all up. And one day, years before he got really sick, I asked him, where's your bass? And he told me, he's a guy that never cries. I never saw him cry, never, But he had a little tear in his eye, kind of like right at the edge, a little tear. And he says, It's in the basement or something. It's the attic. I don't know where he says. He put that bass away and he put a good part of his life away. I don't want you to feel that way. It doesn't have to be music. It could be all kinds of things. Somebody asked me, listen, I tell people, you're all artists. Artists are special kind of people, but they're also special. You are all special kind of artists, each one of you. But then somebody says, well, I'm not an artist. So what do you want to do? What do you love to do? I like to work with cars. I want to be a mechanic. Isn't there art in mechanics? Mm-hmm. There is. There's an art in mechanics, I know. And if you ever have your car fixed up by a guy who doesn't get the art of mechanics, don't go there. You know, if they're about teaching, I want to be a teacher. Isn't there an art in teaching? There's an art in everything you do. The art is how you can bring yourself into it, be creative, make it yours, own that. Whatever you do. And the world that you're all entering is not the same world that I entered. I had to work in steel mills. I had to work in construction. I had to work in smelters and foundries to do what I had to do. You don't have to do that kind of work. Probably just as well. But then you have to think about, how do I carve my way in the world that hasn't set up a way for me? Then you got to think about what really matters to you. Because you have to make it happen. You have to carve out that place and say, this is mine. I made it happen. And I tell that even to the guys in prison, because they come out of prison after all these years. I don't got no skills. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. I go, listen, buddy, we'll help you. We'll give you resources, but you got to make that way. You got to decide what you want to do and go there, and we'll do whatever we can to help you. This is important because there's two things that we can do in this world after everything we've been through. After all the pain, after all the shootings and people you hurt, after you get through that, you either get through it and get good about it, positive, or you become bad about it. You curse the world or you bless the world. Please, whatever you do, bless the world. Can you understand what I'm saying? Your wisdom, your knowledge, your awareness, bless it. You've been through stuff, make something beautiful out of it. Make something powerful out of it. Can't blame people for going through things. I've been through it. My son's been through it. I have a granddaughter, as he says, that's now going through it. But I have hope for her, and I have a lot of love for her. And I will hang on to this idea. Someday she'll find her way, and she will bless the world. You understand what I'm getting at? Make that your goal. Be decent in the world. Be truthful in the world. And whatever you do, be creative. Make beauty in this world. We need more beauty, more art, more music, more dance, more writing, more theater, more banda. We need all this stuff. Let's make this the world that it should be. Not the world you inherited, which is our fault. Some of us gave you a terrible world, but the world in which you can make the truth and goodness and beauty the way it should be. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Appreciate it very, very much.
Have open mics. That way, if you have questions, I know a lot of you I was talking to this morning, you said you're reading the book, you're finishing the book. One person said they're on their final chapter, or maybe you're just inspired and you have questions. This is what we do at Garey High School right now. I want to thank the teachers that put this together, the Cynthia Sanchez, the Rita Torres, the Mr. Pease, the entire staff that's been working on this for before I got here. I want to thank and acknowledge our board members that helped pay for the posters and the books and provided the experience that you are having right now. Mr. Art and Dr. Roberta Perlman in the back. Thank you. Our local newspaper, I used to deliver the Progress Bulletin right here in the neighborhood. David Allen from the Daily Bulletin covering this event. Thank you for coming out.
Okay, so her question was, how do gangs and violence seem to affect teens who grew up in those areas?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why people would join a gang, but I really do believe the biggest problem is poverty. Poverty, not just of material things, but eventually poverty of spirit. You know what I'm saying? The poverty gets so bad that you don't even care anymore. It's not everybody in the gang neighborhood. I've been in the worst gang neighborhoods, and most people are not in gangs. Even in the worst Chicago gang neighborhoods, the worst neighborhoods all over LA and other places. But there's enough of them that will be lost, that will feel nothing about what they're about. And joining gangs feels a lot of the emptiness in their lives. You know what I'm saying? So I always tell people, you want to stop gangs, there's two things you need to do. Work on ending poverty, honestly, because I think poverty is by design. I know people think, no, it's not. People want to be poor. No. People are poor because society sets things up in such a way. We've always been an unequal society. People can say, no, now we create a lot of wealth, but a lot of inequality. It's built in the system. If you don't want to see inequality, you got to have another system. You understand what I'm saying? You can't just build the same old thing off the old one. The old one's already tired out. Now, I don't think that means revolution, tearing things down. I think it's revolution. Let's make things actually be dreamable, imagined, and real. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's a very important part. I want to say one other thing. You all heard about Scared Straight? I believe in Cared Straight. Care for people. Love them. That's what we need, is a lot of love and caring. That will help a lot of kids.
His question was, what beauty did you find in poverty?
Oh, that's fun. You guys do some great questions. There is obviously beauty, even in the worst places. You know who told me this? I don't mind telling you guys. I don't know if you guys care about Bruce Springsteen. Anybody like Bruce Springsteen? Okay, maybe not. It's another time, another place. But he actually became a friend of mine. And he told me one day, even from the worst places, even from the shadows, even from the darkness, even in the ghettos and barrios and jails and prisons, can come beautiful music and art and ideas. So when I say the poverty spirit, I'm saying let's get the spirit back to think and plan and create and make this a better world. That to me is what's important. So the beauty in poverty is that we can all learn to find our way ourselves and get out there and express it in such a way as that we can make the positive change we need to make. Nobody scared me into a gang. I actually wanted to be into a gang. I was 11 years old. When you're 11 years old, you're not really all there. You know, I mean, you're 11, but you're not all developmental. But at 9 years old, up to 9 years old, I was bullied and beaten by a lot of people. And I was getting tired of it, you know what I mean? So one time at 9 years old, somebody beat me up and cracked my jaw. This is why my jaw is crooked. I don't know if you can tell. I only got 3 places where my teeth meet to this day. They cracked my jaw. They didn't break it. They just cracked it in a groove and just pushed it all the way to the side. But that beating, I was on the ground. People made fun of me. They laughed at me. I made a promise. I would never again ever be on the ground and beaten down by anybody. That's a sad thing, because I joined a gang 2 years later. And then I was this tough guy that nobody could mess with. And the reason why it's sad, because it mutates you. You know what I mean? And toughness to me is not really tough. The tough people are the ones that really don't go off and start talking big and talking loud. Even in prisons. I'm telling you, man, even they know. The tough ones are people who could be their word, what we call palabra, who could be trustworthy, who can commit, who can work hard and make something happen. You know what I'm saying? Those are the tough ones. My parents, maybe your parents, others, who against great odds try to raise you. There's toughness out there. People think, I thought it was, I'll take on anybody. I'll give everybody dirty looks. I thought that was toughness. That ain't toughness. And again, when I had to deal with my son and my other kids, I had to step up. I had to learn to be a father. It took a long time, but I had to learn. He's right. He has a line in the poem about how I abandoned him. That's the story about him and his sister. I did abandon them. That's not tough. Tough guy. Abandoned my two oldest kids who saved my life, both of them. So you have to learn what toughness is. That is believing in yourself, having that dream, and doing everything you can to make sure that dream happens. And make sure that balloons pop. That's another tough thing. But anyway, the point is, that to me, it's what's important more than anything, is learning. I joined a gang because I wanted respect and toughness. I got it, but it's very limited. You understand what I'm saying? You have to learn to be really tough inside, and that means pushing through, making things the way they should be made. Thank you.
How did you get through those times?
I didn't get through it very well. You know, I was 10 years old when my best friend died. We were running away from cops, and we were in an elementary school, and he, for some reason, climbed on, I don't know how he got some benches or something, and got to a roof and ran across the rooftop, and didn't know there was a skylight, fell down and killed himself. Nobody talked to me. He died, there was a funeral, memorial, I showed up, nobody said nothing to me. You understand what I'm saying? Nobody helped me, nobody said, hey, we're back. Nobody said nothing. I'm going through this and I don't know what to think, what to feel. I feel terrible, but who do I go to? When I was growing up, I couldn't go to anybody. There wasn't anybody I couldn't even cry to anybody. I hope I'm making sense. I don't know, but it's like, I had nowhere to go. That's not cool. That's not right. But that's the way that I had to grow up, where I couldn't get any place to go. My dad, okay, I don't want to talk bad about him, he's gone and everything else, but one thing about him, he was very frío. You know what I'm saying? He was very cold, very detached, emotionally detached. He might have worked hard, and he did. He came home like a lot of dads, but he might as well not come home. He was not connected. And so I really recommend to people, whatever you can do, love your kids, listen to them, give them the help they need. Don't just knock them down, don't just detach yourself from them. That's what I had to do with my kids. I had to eventually get up, and I got these other kids, and now all of them, all four of them, and they're grown up, my oldest son and my daughter, but I have two other grown-up boys, and all of them got to be listened to, cared for, just like my grandkids, and even my granddaughter. Like I said, this one granddaughter, I have 5 grandkids, but my one granddaughter that's in the street, I will love her. And if she ever needs anything from me, I'll be there. But she has to take those steps, and then we'll be there for the rest of it.
The second question is, what is one thing you regret seeing or experiencing in La Vida Loca?
That people don't imagine that in the 60s and 70s it was as bad as it was. It's as bad as it is now. The difference was it wasn't everybody. Now everybody, for not everybody, but a lot of people are in gangs. Gangs are a big deal everywhere. They're in every city. When I was in gangs, it was only for the chosen few. I hate to say that, but that's what we claimed. We didn't want everybody in the gang. We weren't really recruiting people. People stepped up, and then they had to prove themselves. That's what it was. We didn't care if you were had a gun. People had guns, but that's not what made you a really respectful gang member. Whether you had palabra, which means could you be trusted? Could you come through? Were you down? You know what I'm saying? Down, like you're gonna do whatever needs to be done. And so that's what I learned about being in the gang, and what I think it's important to realize. There's a lot of ways to be down in this world. It does no good to say I'm gonna be down for the barrio and then go off and kill people that are just like you. I lost a lot of people, so that's the thing that hurts me. I didn't have any more best friends because all my best friends were being killed. 2 of them were killed by police. Others by heroin overdoses, by being shot. I've held people in my arms, and my son has done this, who have been shot. That is not a good thing to have to go through. That's the worst painful thing. I can tell you one other thing. The other part of being in the gang that I didn't like, what I was willing to do. Because I have shot people, I have stabbed people. I will have to say thank God and all the energies in the universe that I never killed anybody. But I didn't care. I was doing it to kill people. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. I'm thankful. I don't want to have that carry. And I know I work with these guys in prison who have to carry this their whole life. I'm glad I don't have to carry that, but it's a very painful thing. But I did hurt people, and I was prepared to hurt people. And that, I think, is the worst aspect. All the people that die, but also that I'm willing to hurt others. That, to me, is really sad.
Know their stories. Whose story has stuck and how has it impacted you the most?
Well, I'm going to say something that I don't really talk about too much. I think it's the silent, quiet story of the girls. It's in my book. The guys were loud. They were overturning the table. You know they were in trouble. What people did not know how many girls were in trouble and nobody knew it. You know what I'm saying? Because they were invisible. They made themselves invisible, but also people didn't pay attention to them. A lot of times the girls were the ones going through, following all the functional things, but they were dying inside. You know what I'm saying? And many of them all of a sudden, they commit suicide. What happened? I didn't know that this person was hurting. And I'm not just talking about girls, there's a lot of people like that. It's not a girl thing either. It's just a thing that happens to some people. So you got the loud people that are out there throwing things around, and you know, hey man, those people, they get all the attention, the squeaky wheel, right? I was one of those, myself was one of those. We got a lot of attention. But then my daughter, who didn't join a gang, never took drugs, never got into all these issues, she's even more hurting than even him. We didn't know. Being silent to the point that you don't even know how to breathe. That to me is one of the things that was very painful in what I learned. And what I want to say about my book, I didn't talk about it, I want to say something else. They don't do this anymore that I know of, but a lot of girls, in my gang, girls couldn't join the gang. That may not be true for other gangs. Girls couldn't join. But they were disrespected, they were kidnapped, they were raped. That's what happened in my barrio in those days. And I wrote about it. Because I never participated, I didn't want to, I didn't care about it. But I'll be honest with you, one of my hurtful things is I didn't stop, I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know what to do, I would walk away. A lot of girls got hurt. And to this day, the girls, with the pains that they carry from guys that beat them up and others, I think that's a big part of the story that doesn't get told, that I wish could be told more. Thank you.
If you wouldn't have turned out as a poet or author?
I'm very clear about it. I'd be dead. I'd be in prison the rest of my life. My son was the same way. He can tell you, but I'll tell you one thing he did tell me. Him doing the prison time, he said saved him in many ways. He'd be dead if he wasn't in prison. Now I hate to say that, prison's a savior, but you know, it took him away from the streets. It was bad, him being in prison, it was rough. He could have been killed in prison, but it also kept him from being in the streets where he was going. There was a section in there where I wrote about when I stabbed somebody. It was very hard. I kept that so far away, but I had to get back into that moment. I stabbed somebody with a rusty screwdriver. I had just got initiated into the locals, which is the second level of the gang, the highest level of the gang. I was in the Chicos first. You know, they beat me up, they had an initiation, Gauntlet, you know, they beat you up and everything. But now I had to go through getting initiated by several guys beating up on me. And that very night, he took us to a rival neighborhood, not with guns though, with rusty screwdrivers, bumper jacks, you know, whatever we can find, sticks, bats, whatever. And we attacked these guys. And then we were beating them up, we would hit them over the head with bricks, they were in a party, we jumped all these guys, and at one point, I'm standing there now with this guy in the car already bleeding, and the main guy, the main shot caller, we call it the guy that was calling the shots for everybody, he gave me a rusty screwdriver and told me to stab him. And I did. And the reason why it's very hard to write about it, I want to tell you something. To do something like that, you have to be so emotionally numb so that you don't feel what he's feeling and you don't care how you're feeling. You have to cut yourself off. You know what I'm saying? You have to act like justified he's an enemy. He wasn't an enemy. We know who he was. Didn't matter. I justified everything. He deserved to die. You know, all this, you justify it. And then you do something like that. And I heard him scream, but I was so detached from that moment that it sounded like a wild animal far, far away. You hope, or you know what I'm saying. It sounded like it was something far away. That's how detached I was. It was hard to write about that, but I had to, because I've done these things to people. And I also wrote about the time I shot somebody. And so these are things hard, but I have to, if I want to talk about the war, I got to talk about what I heard. You see what I'm saying? And that's important. Be honest, but be honest about yourself first. You've got to be honest first with you before you can be honest with the world. If you can handle where you are, and where you've been, and what you've gone through, you can handle all this stuff. I want to thank you all. You guys were amazing. You guys were beautiful, respectful. I wish you nothing but the best. Please keep doing it. Stay